From the dust in the universe to the waters in the womb I surf, I'm the all in all. From the atoms that exist in the sun to the atom that's in Genesis 1, I'm the all in all. From the first king that walked this globe to the last black slave they stole, I'm the all in all. Every living thing you see, all of those things exist in me. I'm the all in all. From the depths of the sea to Mount Everest, Allah in the flesh, most benevolent. This physical form born from melanin. When electrical thought sparked intelligence, ain't nothing existing I don't exist in. From the clouds in the heavens down to this skin. If you doing the knowledge, you can follow Jews. In both cases, the basis, water molecules. Rain, sleet, snow, hailstorms come together the same way that my cells form. You don't see it yet, hard to fathom still. It's A-like to the pyramids, how my atoms build. I existed as DNA when the earth formed, and my paternal lineage is from the firstborns. Holy Quran, Bible, I'm coded down. In a fine mist, you'll miss if you don't know the square. Yeah, on all four corners they seek the G, while trying to speak on me in secrecy. I created the earth as mother and daughter. The bones are the rocks, her blood is the water. Yeah, her skin is the crust, her heart is the core. Yeah, I planted the seeds, I parted the shores. Yeah, emitted my light, she saw the corona. Original man, maker, I'm the all in all. From the dust in the universe to the waters in the womb I surf, I'm the all in all. From the atoms that exist in the sun to the atom that's in Genesis 1, I'm the all in all. From the first king that walked this globe to the last black slave they stole, I'm the all in all. Every living thing you see, all of those things exist in me. I'm the all in all. Supreme team, dominant gene, God in the physical. Rose from the bowels of hell, pardon my visual. Cremators doing their job when they get rid of you. Crabs in a bucket, mind state to kill a nigga too. Civil wars in the hood, letting hammers dance. Playing with them pieces of steel, attract the ambulance. Or a prison bid, now your daughter's sick. Ain't nothing gangsta about leaving your seeds fatherless. So I study self and subtracted crime. It takes supreme mathematics to heal a grafted mind. For the 2 and the 3, you need the 1. The only way to get to the Father is through the Son. I met a lot of dudes on that used to shit. They come and go every day, I'm getting used to it. Far as self go, I'm planted on the square. They unalike to Allah, they planted over there. They don't respect the history, they don't recite degrees. Where we be using them both to reunite the seed. Yellow to the brown, brown to the black. Accepted or rejected, you repel or attract. It's been over 50 years, he been gone so far. Now that's a powerful cipher. Peace to Allah.
You won't be smiling on Rikers Island. Rikers Island was one of the largest penal institutions in the United States of America. I don't know too many outside the world, so I can't say if there was ever, another penal colony that was larger. And I would like to speak on Rikers Island. This is going to be one of my first episodes about Rikers Island. For one, when we was young growing up, as young individuals back in our neighborhoods, we looked up. It was kind of like a badge of honor when you was able to go to Rikers Island and come back home, represented if you got in any type of scuffles or fight, because, usually people hear more things in jail quicker than they hear it in the street. Just like if something go crazy with you inside or behind those walls, it's going to come back out to the street. So if you went in there and you was a sucker, or as they say, a Maytag, washing people's clothes or doula or whatever, that's going to be known too, because that's where you get your stripes from. So it was like a badge of honor. So growing up, like I said, my little clique was me, Boxhead, Gangster Larry, rest in peace. And we used to go down to Delancey Street. We go shopping and we go also to pull a caper, any way we can. A dude on the ice cream cart, or maybe snatch some bags or something from some other lame cats getting back on the train. We was young and we just was with what was a part of that street life. And you couldn't go down to Delancey Street back then and go shopping and get no quarterfields, you know what I'm saying? Teardrop gabardines, members only. We had all that Italian knits, everything, and get back on that train without looking to get robbed. Like if you ain't nobody or you not, thorough with the streets and know how to move, then you gonna get bagged for whatever you bought. So like I said, we used to go down Delancey Street, whatever, pulling out little capers. And Boxhead happened to be the first one out of our crew. I think Box might have been like maybe 16, because Box is a year or so older than me or whatever. And, he ended up on Rikers Island. If I'm not mistaken, it was 1977, And I think he did 6 months, his first bid, He might have been in the 6th building, got C-73, C-74, C-95, HDM. I'm going to tell you the story later on about the Beacon, and everything else. And like I said, he was the first one to go into the alley. So when he came back home grip, and he was just telling us about the escapades in there and everything, cats wrapping up, 52, all that slick shit, everything else, So we was impressed that he so-called made it through. Because back then, it was all about your hand game. If you wasn't nice with your hand game, you was subjected to anything. But anyway, I was always intrigued about the alley, because of all the stories that I heard. And like I said, back then, 74, 75, whatever, where they was bucking their Lawton, it was this one cat, my man, named Mickey from across the street, and Mickey was a real cool dude. He was one of them guys, back then, he was fly, all the chicks was on him, whoop, 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 and he was thorough. So Mickey went to Rikers Island. When he came back home, that was during the time of the graffiti era and everything else, he started writing cupcakes on the wall. So, being that it was him and me watching him growing up, like I said, always representing ladies' man and everything else, I thought it was just, something else that was real cool that he took that name, a fly guy name or whatever. So a little bit later on down the line, I run into the movie, which all of y'all should watch, called Short Eyes, And in that movie, Short Eyes, that was showing how Rikers Island was back in the 70s, They had a guard in it named El Rahim. They had a pimp in it named Iceman, you know what I'm saying? They had this dope fiend cat named Omar, and you had the Spanish dudes, that was in there and everything else. But anyway, the role with Cupcake was, he was, a Puerto Rican dude, curly hair, whatever, good looking cat, no homo, And while he was in there, everybody was playing, the booty bandit politics with him, And one of the Puerto Rican gangbang cats tried to take him in the shower, And he was like, come on, man, we both, Puerto Rican, how could you do that to your brother? He was like, yo, man, you so, pray. Anyway, make a long story short, Raheem was telling him at the beginning, come on, get the knowledge. If, you get the knowledge, they'll no longer call you Cupcake, but, he gave him some type of God name. But the moral to the story was that everybody wanted to, to have Cupcake, And they even said in one part where Omar was telling them, well, if you're going to give it up with the excuse, I want some, and he was telling them, giving them a rundown on, Ice playing them like his chick in the street because he was a pimp. And he said, yo, even the guard, El Rahim, he put the wisdom before the knowledge, And the reason why that was going on back then, because like when you went into jail back then, it was, like I said, once again, if you couldn't, handle yourself, and you was a good looking cat, then you was subjected to those type of vultures, or as we call them back then, booty bandits. Nowadays, cats just, with that. And if that's your thing, that's your thing. I'm not knocking that. But like we said, the pants, slaggy, all of that, when we was going through back then, that was mostly for, the cats that was living in that world, or they wanted to be something other than, a man and in an environment of men. You understand? So, like I said, the moral to that one right there was, that the pressure. So, I'm going to take y'all on a slight little, journey. Like I said, for one, Rikers Island was the largest penal institution, in the United States. And my first encounter, before I read this article to you, was 1983. 83 was when, like I said, once again, it's about making choices when you're young. And I came home for Easter break in my junior year from college, had 2 pounds of weed upstairs to take back with me. And I'm down the hallway with all my OGs that was coming home from the early, bids, early 70s or whatever, mid 70s, them Zip 5s and Zip 7s and all that. And I'm intrigued with, building with them. And I got a little Wisdom Power 25 automatic in my back pocket. I was always taught, no matter who, don't let nobody know when you got a weapon on you, because you never know when you got to use it on them. And I was always taught, from my uncles from day one, if you pull a weapon out on somebody, you might shoot them. Or if somebody pull a weapon on you, whether they shoot you or not, they got your life in their hands. So that's taking it to the next level. I done fought individuals that had a hammer on me, a guard, cipher divine destruction on me, and didn't pull it out or put it down and say, let's square off. Because like I said, the rules was if you pull it, use it. But anyway, back then in the projects, they used to, when the police come in, they just would tell you, you loitering, get out the hallway. And I'm figuring that's what's going to go on. But because of the individuals that I was with, and one individual was just coming home from doing a lot of time. And as soon as he seen them, he took off, Waco took off, So that just left me with my other, homies in there. And instead of them telling us to get out the hallway, they pat frisked me down. And he missed it the first time, but the second time he came back up, and that rookie ended up being a detective. I think his name was Mark or whatever, but he was a rookie back then, and I was his first real case, so he always remembered me when he came back through later on through the hood. But anyway, he found the Wisdom Power 25 automatic, and I was talking to the police that was from the hood forever named Porgy. We had Porgy and Jack, you know. Jack the cop, he used to go around banging all the chicks in the project, front, back, side, everything. But they was there forever, you know. So I thought Porky was gonna give me, you know, a break. Yo, Porky, come on, man. I'm in college. I'm doing good, you know. I'm crying like a little, you know, like a little girl on the side because I'm trying to get this cat to give me a break with this hammer. But anyway, it don't go down like that. They lock me up, boom, go to central booking. It's 1983. Go through the ballistics. Lucky, you know, I got a $500 bond or whatever. My old earth, you know, she peeled me. But before she peeled me, you know, I was in there and I made it to the bullpen. I don't recollect what building it was, whether it was C-94 or whatever. But I'm in there, and once again, you know, I see the movement. You know, I'm already prepared that, yo, I'm on the alley now. I got to hold my own. I got to represent, you know. And I done had knowledge since I was knowledge culture of freedom. So at that time, you know, the 5% nation was still real strong in the prison system, especially, you know, in now in New York and on Rikers Island. So I got in there, I'm seeing everything, the movements. And one cat, you know, I could see his movements, how, you know, he got other cats kind of under pressure. So I'm already, you know the rules. When you go to jail, don't take nothing from nobody. I don't smoke no cigarettes. You know, I don't want no candy. I don't want no favors. I don't want nothing. So, you know, he finally come through, start holding a conversation with me. I converse back with him. And then, you know, I tell him who I was. You know, I'm God Shabu, you know, Allah. And then, oh, peace, God. Once again, one of the guards, he like, yo, I got you when we go upstairs, whoop, whoop, whoop. So, you know, I was already basically good out the rip, off the gate. Because, you know, I met a guard that was used to bidding. But anyway, I never made it upstairs. They end up calling me, you know, on the bailout. So that was as far as I went. That was 1983. I ended up getting 5 years probation for that case, which was the dumbest thing that I did because I didn't know nothing about the system back then. And I had a lawyer, I think her name was Joyce Boyce, something like that. Anyway, she wasn't letting me really know, like, look, if you don't take this misdemeanor right here in 120 Hoyt and Skimmerhorn, they gonna, you know, shoot it up to Supreme Court, and then now it's not no longer gonna be a misdemeanor, it's gonna be a felony. And I was just turned 21. So, you know, 21 and under, you could still get youthful offender status in New York back then. But anyway, she didn't school me to the severity of the felony situation. So I didn't really want to go in and do no time. So when they offered me, I think it was 15 to 30 days in Rikers Island on the summer, during my summer vacation from school, I turned it down. And that's where, you know, I ended up going to Supreme Court, ended up copping out anyway, but now I'm copping out with the F, the failure. 1 year from getting my degree, but I make a stupid choice and come back in my hood and gotta be having a gun on me. So anyway, I cop out to the 5 years probation, you know? And somewhere I reported 1 or 2 times, they told me they was transferring me to another probation officer. And I was supposed to have been waiting for a letter, never got a letter. 4 years later, I got a letter or something telling me to come down. And I came down and they was releasing me off of probation. So anyway, continuing on, like I said, 83, I didn't get a chance to hit the alley to see what it was really all about. But 88, I caught my case out on Linden Boulevard in Queens, right? And when I caught my case on Linden Boulevard, that was just right around the time that, you know, everything had went down with, you know, the Fat Cat and Pappy and them and Officer Burns, you know, getting rocked. And they formed T&T. And I was like one of the first cats that they knocked that day because I was living out there on 225th between 114th Avenue and 114th Road. If you walk this way down to Francis Lewis, you know what I'm saying? You in Springfield Gardens or whatever. If you walk down the Murdoch, you in Hollis. If you go up the Linden Boulevard, you in St. Albans. You know what I'm saying? So when I first went out there, you know, I went out there with, you know, the guards, and I was on 201st in Linden, you know, but they had a 24-hour store on 205th in Linden. So, you know, me being who I am and the team of brothers I was rolling with at that time, you know, we ventured down to 205th and, you know, copped that block. So, you know, I was out there doing my thing, had all the winos, you know, hustling for me, whatever. I let the young guards do their thing during the day. All I want to do is come out 7 to 10. But anyway, I got rocked with, I don't know, I think it was like 231 vials of crack, you know, and they knocked me off, rode around in the, you know, paddy wagon or whatever while they did their thing exploiting the rest of Queens that day, you know, South Side, all that. I end up, you know, in the bullpens out there, Kew Gardens, whatever. My man, you know, 93 came, bailed me out. So that was my first case, you know. And while I'm going through that, I end up catching another case. You know what I'm saying? Back in Brooklyn, back at the spot that I didn't even get to yet with us with the guards around the corner on Logan Street between Sutter and Belmont. Like I said, I got so much content, I got to get busy, you know? But anyway, going back to that, I ended up having to cop out to a 1.5 to 3.5. Matter of fact, that's when they used to call something Boulevard Suffering Something, you know? And something 89th Street, if I got it right and exact. Y'all know what it is, my brothers from the desert and the oasis. Anyway, I go up in there. Once I caught the second case, it was basically no getting around it, you know? So I left that case open, and I had Judge Rothrax first, but somehow I agreed to the cop-out, you know, and they sent me from Judge Rothrax down to the 3rd floor. And the reason why I'm mentioning him so much, because that's like I said, they was calling it Suffering Something. He was one of the judges why it was called that, because he used to say slick shit like, you know, look out the window. You see a tree, And, you know, that was like, nah, I don't see a tree out the window. Well, it'll be one when you come back. Bang, 25, life, whatever. He was giving it up. So I was happy to get out of his court, and I took the cop out, you know, with the judge on the third floor of something Boulevard, Supreme Court. Matter of fact, when I was taking the cop out that day, I ran into my man Pudgy. Shout out to Pudgy. I don't know whether you know still alive, where you at, or whatever, but I knew Pudgy from East New York. We used to play ball together, you know. Back in the days, I think he was from over there in Penn Workman, Gershwin Projects, or whatever. And at that time, him, the skinny cat from out our way in Plaza named Ivan, and this other cat named Doc. Doc got killed back then. They, you know, was all out there on Rockaway Boulevard. You know, shout out to my man, the Godfather Taheem. He was from out that way. He used to DJ at the Encore. I'm gonna do an interview with him one day too. But anyway, they ended up killing Doc, and I knew Doc personally also because my cousin Lisa used to deal with him. And that particular day, I ran into Pudgy, and, you know, he was going through it, you know, the same thing. And I took my cop out 1.5 to 3, you know, and I think they gave me 60 days to turn myself in, okay? So before I go any further with this, I just want to hit y'all with a little article about Rikers Island. Like I said, you won't be smiling on Rikers Island. And this is an up-to-date one. But anyway, inside Rikers dysfunction, lawlessness, and detainees in control, with a staffing emergency disrupting the basic functions of the jail system, detainees had free reign inside. That's how it used to be back in the days. The prisoners used to run the alley. When the detainee decided, this was October the 11th, when a detainee decided to hijack, this was in the New York Times too, by James Ranson, John E. Bromwich, and Rebecca Davis O'Brien. Once again, when a detainee decided to hijack a bus inside the Rikers Island jail complex, little was in place to stop him. All he had to do was rise from where he sat with a half dozen other handcuffed men and walk to the front of the unguarded vehicle. A gate that should have confined him was left unsecure, the keys in the ignition. That would have never happened with us back on the alley, going to court or anything. Putting the bus into gear, he rammed the jail building and then backed up and rammed it again, this time with enough force to shake the walls and scatter the bricks. To outsiders, the detail of September the 16th incident, which have not been previously reported, might sound alarming, but to anyone who has spent time on Rikers Island in the past year, such breakdowns are business as usual. Okay, let me continue. Much has been made of the crisis gripping Rikers, New York City main jail complex. The pandemic and a substantial staffing emergency have taken a brutal toll on the incarcerated people and jailers alike. But the sheer lawlessness inside the compound is difficult to fathom. Cats is running wild. Detainees in some buildings have seized near total control over the entire units, deciding who can enter and leave them. Records and interviews show. In other buildings, they have wandered in and out of staff, break rooms, and similar restricted areas, with some flouting rules against smoking tobacco and marijuana. Sometimes they have answered phones that were supposed to be manned by guards. That's really, really off the chain. Several have stolen keys and used them to free others in custody who went on to commit slashings and other acts of violence. I know y'all all seen that, DVD back in the days, on the island that the correction officer did, showing all the slashings. The Chados was not limited to incarcerated people. Correction officers have participated in beatings or failed to interview in hangings and other urgent situations. Last week, a guard was charged with providing a razor blade to a detainee who planned to use it as a weapon. Now, when I go into what I'm going to go into, which was, my first time inside the walls in 1989, you're going to see what I'm talking about and how real that was. City officials have accused jail officers of abusing generous sick leave policies. Hundreds have been out of work, while officer labor union has said guards are not going to work because the conditions in the jails are unsafe and inhumane. Okay, my people. You've heard that. The island has always been off the hook. Okay? I had to mute my phone just in case somebody called me on my other phone. Anyway, my first introduction to the island was in I went in and I want to say either the end of 88 going into 89, or it probably was January. Yeah, it was January of 89 because my number was 89A3453. Okay, so now, here it begins. I go in, like I said, first, I turned myself in to Kew Gardens. I turned myself in, and I'm in the bullpens. I happen to be in the bullpens. I come in there with a few chains on and, big ring and the kit and caboodle. Not realizing, that it is what it is. You go in the island, you ain't going to no fashion show, and not unless you already established yourself as a real thoroughbred, a hitter, and everything so forth on. Whoever you may have been out in the street, it don't matter. Nobody cares nothing about how many guns you bust in the street, this, that, and the third, what's your reputation, or whatever. So, like I said, I'm in the bullpens. And I happened to walk in, and a few cats from my project was in there. And they'll tell you, they know the story is 100% true. So when I see them, my little man, Johnny Rush, Stan, and think El Rahim, Bubba, they was in there. So I see them, and, I'm all relaxed, and I'm just coming off the street, I'm all tweeted up, everything. So I start, putting my back against the wall, got ballies on, all that. And I slide down, and I happen to be talking to them, figuring everything is cool, because these my peeps from the project. We in Queens, and you know, I'm running into them. I think they had did some wild shit out there, Far Rockaway or something, with some lawyer or something back then. But anyway, I don't know the jail politics like they do, because them cats been in and out of jail, Spofford, you know, Boys Town, all that, Warwick, this, that, and the third. So they, you know, they was younger than me, but they was groomed to the jail politics. So anyway, I'm kicking it with them, and I'm not peeping that these cats in the back are scheming on me for the jury. So boom, all of a sudden it come out of nowhere. Cat comes, boom. Already I'm in a messed up position. If I was standing up, I might have had some type of defense. But like I said, I had slid down. And they sitting on the bench, and I'm kicking it with them. So cat come, boom, stick the razor to my neck. And he's like, yo, take that ring off, boom, boom, boom. I'm like, yo, you punk motherfucker, you take the ring off. And he went like he was ready to slash me or whatever, you know, and he took the ring off, you know what I'm saying? And they went to the back, but as soon as he took the ring off, you know, I went back there, you know, I got a chance to throw one or two blows. And what was so ironic was it was another one of them sucker jive, so-called guard-ass niggas that was with him. Because what happened was after, you know, I made the little move to show niggas that I wasn't soft, you wasn't going to just rob me and get away with it. The CO came, you know, but they knew what was going on all the time. You know, what happened, yada, 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 you know. And now they pulled me out the cell. So when they asked me what happened, because, you know, he didn't get a chance to you know, get nothing else, I said to the CO, ain't nothing happening, you know. And they knew what took place, but anyway, they put me over in the other cell. So by that time, the other cats seen what popped off, and they was like, yo, son, we gonna see them later on. And yo, once again with some guards in there, we started politicking. Yo, guard got them. Yo, and that nigga's supposed to be named Born or whatever, you know, True, whatever the character name that rolled with the other character. Okay, so, you know, that was the introduction. You know, I never ran into the lanes again or whatever. I left from there, and I ended up in C-95, because at that time in C-95, and we all know C-95 is the detox, we call it San Juan, you know, because that's where all the Bolipa is going to be. That's where all the Peru, the Puerto Ricans, you know, Dominicans, you know, all the cats, mostly in New York back then, you know. Not nothing for nothing, all respect due to my Latino brothers, but you know how y'all get down with the heroin. So a lot of them end up in C-95 because that's where they can get their methadone from. You know, so that's the building that the brothers is basically outnumbered, you know. But like I said, this is, you know, the end of the 80s, 88 going into 89. So, you know, once again, the guards are still pretty strong, you know, in them buildings. So I get in there, and they send me to the off the hook dawn. I get sent to four top. I roll in the four top, right? You know, and anybody know, man, when it's really popping, them dawns is really off the hook, you know? And at that time, it was popping. If I don't mention your name, it's not you wasn't a live wire or whatever. All I could go by is my memory, and my memory is pretty good. So I'm going to just, kick off a couple of names when I rolled up in the house. When I rolled up in the house, first off the rip, I ran into a guard, light-skinned brother named Bar Kim. And how I knew Bar Kim is that Bar Kim had some cousins that lived in the 18 building at that time, 315 Fountain Avenue. And his cousin's name was Randy and Tony, right? Now, Randy, Tony, and this other cat, Big Andre. Andre could have been a heavyweight, Anthony Green could have been a heavyweight boxing champion. But anyway, back then, them cats was already on that, once again, that smash and grab. They was one of the first crew of cats that I knew. They used to steal cars, and they used to go up to 47th Street and Broadway, you know what I'm saying, and hit, licks for jewelry, trays of jewelry. I don't know whether they was on they might have been on some cat burglary things or whatever, but I know they used to come back, trays of jewelry, so forth and so on, And I think they had went out to Long Island or Queens. They had gotten a high-speed chase and all that. That was the first time I seen, I'm talking about 100, 150 police, It was all on the news. Anyway, I knew Bar Kim from coming out there and being with them and them rolling, doing their capers. So Bar was in there. So boom, we start politicking, everything else. I think it was this cat that was getting money named Chink, from Flatbush. Chin or Chink, I don't know whether he was Guyanese or whatever, but, he had the, light-skinned pretty boy, way hair. He was a get money cat. And was another cat in there named Pearl. I think Pearl was from out of Bushwick. Pearl was Cock Diesel, and then maybe in a few days, my man Wink came in there from Brownsville. I used to go back with Wink, it's either Wink or Winky or whatever. We used to play ball at the BRC. He was with the Brownsville Panthers, Brownsville Jets, and all that. Wink was Cock Diesel, but at that time, he was messing around with Baby Sam and them, and he was one of their enforcers. So he ended up coming in there. He had two bodies and whatever, and like when I read the article about the correction officer giving an inmate a razor, at that time, there was this nasty, fat, white broad named Miss Carlisle. We was in Photown, and she ain't really dig me, because I was on, that guard body 5% kick lessons where, Kufi with the 360 tassel and all that. And she tried to put a semi-hit out on me, because my man Pearl was the captain of the house gang. And back then, if it was 38 people in the dorm or whatever, only 25 people ate in the morning, sometimes might be less than that, depending on how the house gang wanted to handle, cats. But Pearl was the captain of the house gang at that time. And she, he, like I said, he was one of them diesel cats, older cat, but, he was, he had his swag up, so the little fat, white broad was feeling him. So she tried to put a hit on me, but Pearl was like, yo, I'm going to kill that guard, don't even worry about that. But the broad had hit, Pearl with a 007. That was like having a Uzi back then. On the island. This nigga had a real switchblade 007. So anyway, I was right there in his little cubicle space. But anyway, the house was off the chain, okay? Now, mind you, I'm a gangster. You know what I'm saying? But at this time, this is my first real experience of Rikers Island. And like they say, you won't be smiling on Rikers Island. Boom. I forgot something. Before I even got upstairs, you know when you're going through intake, all that, boom, 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 they're giving you your joint, you got to go to, you know, nurse's station and all that. Yo, they brings in this cat that, yo, I never seen nobody that was cut up, that was wrapped up. This cat was cut up. They had his whole face, everything, wrapped up like the mummy. And yo, word is bond on everything I love. It was so real that the blood was, I mean, they had him stapled, wrapped up, gauzed up, and everything. And this nigga still was bleeding through the gauze. You know? So I'm like, wow, it's going down. So like I said, I entered Photop. So now let me go to these cats that was, you know, going crazy. It was a cat from out of the Bronx, heavyset dude named Shaq. Once again, he was one of them dudes that been jailing, like all these cats, you know, they been in and out of the system since, you know, they was juveniles. I wasn't running back and forth. I thought going to jail was for suckers, even though I admired cats that went to jail and came back home from my hood and stood up and represented and everything else. I still wasn't with that. You know, I was an athlete, going to school and, you know, doing my thing at random, but definitely not trying to get caught for no crimes. So the cat Shaq, off the chain, out the Bronx. How me and him parlayed, you know what I'm saying, after a while was, you know, when I mentioned my man Eddie Richardson, Crazy Eddie, got a whole story on him too. Like I said, he the first one to bring me into the game. He owned half of Disco Fever, you know. And when I came home in 84, if I would have listened to him right then, you know, because he had the spot up on 188th and Jerome and Burnside called Games People Play. I told y'all that before. That's, you know, Sweet G made his record behind that spot called Games People Play, you know? And he's the first one to introduce me to the whole cook up cocaine and bring it back. And like I said, Kendall, 18, nobody knew nothing about that thing. That was like a Bronx, Manhattan thing. But anyway, he was trying to get me to do it and open up a spot in Brooklyn then. But Shaq had knew him. Law bless the dead also. He returned to the essence as far as I know. Eddie Richardson. So when I mentioned him, he's like, yo, that's my man. Woo, 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 woo. We was good. But here come this cat. And everybody that been through the system, because, you know, I done listened to some of the blood joints and whoop, whoop, whoop. And, you know, they talk about this cat because he was truly bout it. One of the maddest, illest, you know, cats when it comes to that jailing, robbing, you know. Matter of fact, I think he was in there, you know, for 7 bodies dead, you know. I heard, you know, he returned up north. First they had put it in the street that, you know, he returned from, you know, HIV, and it happened like that. But another individual, you know, my man, you know, fam, Black Knowledge, you know, Knowledge was in there. Knowledge was, he was in, I was in Four Top, and he was across from me. I could have went over there with Knowledge, you know what I'm saying? But I'm like, yo, I'm cool. I hold my own over here, you know? And I think he had already caught his sentence. But like I said, at that time, we had, in the Tops, you had, you know, state prisoners that was going back and forth, reversals, new cases they was fighting. So the tops was full with, state prisoners and, people that was going to court and people that was already sentenced. Because back then you went to C-95, and from there you got on the bus and went up north. So that's what I was there for, 13 days before I go up north, because they don't send you up north in 13 days and you supposed to be able to get out the case and all that. And I don't know if that ever happened, but that was the word. So anyways, like I said, let me go back to this individual. This individual name was True Mathematics. Puerto Rican True Mathematics from out of Penal. And he was a nut. Robbing, stabbing, cutting, everything moving, But, once again, he was guard body. Another individual from, it wasn't Power Rule the Nation, I don't think, because I know, I met him before he went and did all his time. Another one, rest in peace. Everybody, upstate through the penitentiary, know the brother and everything else. But it was another brother back there from Fort Greene. He had a cane. Name was Powerful too. Along with the sprinkles of all the other, Ignats or whatever. But True was off the chain. Them 13 days that I did in Four Top, I seen cats getting stabbed. If they don't feed us somebody new or something else at night, it's going down. All that, put the towel, or one dude hold your arms, the other dude hold your legs, and boom, you robbed, slashed up, whatever, you out of there. Or cats is playing cards, all of a sudden, cat get $1.50, But, like I said, anywhere I go, if you talk about, being a 5%er, then it's my job, you know what I'm saying, to put you on your square. So you ain't gonna be, no savage in the pursuit of happiness around me, and calling yourself God. So me and True built, a pretty good relationship. He tested me one night. I was in the day room. I was making 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and that's when, cats walk around with the gloves, all that, You do what you want, smoke weed, and everything was in there. So I left out the day room, and they all came in the day room, and everything is a test, So one of my sandwiches is missing. So I'm like, yo, who the fuck took my sandwich? Like, don't be playing the fuck with me like that. Excuse my expression. Equality means to be equal in everything. So if you want something from me, all you got to do is ask for it. But anyway, True stepped up. He said, I got the sandwich, God. I'm like, come on, God, don't play them games with me. You want something, you ask it, from me. I'm going to do unto you as I want you to do unto me. And he respected that. Anybody else, you might have got slashed in your face, God or no God. So for the next couple of days that I was in there, I went to commissary. I think you got, besides the tops, you got the uppers, the mains, and the modules. But anyway, when you go downstairs to go to commissary, it's off the chain in the hallway. cats is constantly getting robbed and everything. But so happily, once again, all my crew from the P's is up in there. You know, El Rahim, Kendu, Green Eyes, Bubba, a few more cats that I grew up with in Cypress. And they running, Little Divine, Andrew and Shorty. All them was back and forth, in and out of jail since they was young. So, they had the buildings on lock. From adolescents, they was wilding and everything. So, like I said, with the jail politics, they was established. But anyway, about 13 days in there before I went up north is, like I said, it was on fire, I did the suicide watch at night, so that's how I was able to see certain things go down. But they was $150 cats left and right. And like I said, from the beginning, you won't be smiling on Rikers Island. Before I end up leaving, we used to build, got brothers into their lessons and everything. And True Mathematics had so much respect for me that, he ended up asking me for one of my crowns at that time. I had the gold, white, and black that my Earth had made at that time, Taniqua, with the tassel on it and my name in it. And then I had a black and white one that said Shabu on it. And he was like, yo, God, I respect you so much, when I go up north and everything else, that, I want, to have something to remember you by, and also to tell brothers that, you help enlighten me. And of course, I gave it to him. But all you individuals that was in them buildings back then, you really know what it was. And that's what I say. You could be one way in the streets, but when you hit the buildings, Rikers Island, adolescents, C-93, they wilding, HDM, I forgot to mention, they was in there wilding. All the buildings that you went to, they was in there wilding. So I was happy in a way when they called me that morning to leave, to go up north. And matter of fact, that morning when I went to the mess hall and everything before I was leaving out to get on the bus to go up north, I ran into, my little homie, my little brother, you know what I'm saying? We was around each other since, I think Drac might have been like no more than maybe 12 or something, like I said, out there with me, little Rick Martin and Tut Black and them, doing our little capers. Not that we educated the young to do it, but, some of them was in the mix. I sent them home at times, but, Drac was, another one of them that was young that got out, off the bricks early, in the jungle early, So I ran into him, and that's when I found out, that he was facing that body. And I hope to get an interview with you soon about all that too, Drac. You need to come up here on Guards in them streets and let me get that interview. But anyway, you know, everybody know Drac was king, you know, of the Midtown, hitting the pockets. Like I said, you know, he was living like drug kingpins back then. Jewelry, cars, the whole kit. And he was like one of the leaders, at least of the mob from out our way. And they was going down there getting off. Matter of fact, I don't know if they remember, but I remember it was a time, I think him and Guy came off for their first 10 G's. I know back then, that's when I had the two-tone Maxima, you know, and I don't know whether they was on the staircase, how I ran into them, but I ran into them and they ended up saying to me, yo, Shy, can you give me a ride up on Pickens Avenue, the his and hers? And that's when the Fila shoots, you know, the whole Fila gang was, you know, first coming on deck. So that's when the original white with the red and the blue stripe, those was like $110. The velour Fila suits was like $300. I don't know. I think they came off for like about 10 bands that day or whatever. So anyway, I drove them up there. They ended up buying me Fila suit, some Fila sneakers, drove them back to the projects. They did their thing. So, like I said, it's that morning I'm on my way up. I run in the Drac. He told me, you know, they got him in there for that Midtown body. Some man got picked up, thrown on his head, and, you know, I guess because the C-Ciphers wanted him so bad, you know, that, because they ended up in New York Magazine, you know, Wolfpack and all that, talking about him and Little Bob and a bunch of other cats from the projects going up there, hitting the pockets. So the man fell on his head and died. So they gave the body to Drac. I think Drac did like 27 years on that. But he ain't have nothing to do with that. But you know how it goes sometimes. So once again, like I said, people, make the right choice while you're young. Don't make the wrong choices. Don't be in the wrong crowds. You know, don't be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And you can navigate through the madness. All right? Like I said, this is episode 1 about the adventures of Rikers Island. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I'm going to dress it up for you a little bit. And I'll be right back at you. Peace.